So someone had the question, how to modernize JJ by not treating it like a cult and giving people the freedom to train freely. Little redundant there. However, he has a good point. And I think what this question is really asking is, how do you build a healthy culture in a gym? How do you avoid cult-like mentalities, tribalism from manifesting? The simple answer is to create a flat hierarchy, which means try and have multiple instructors where no one instructor is like, top dog. That's really the problem, is if you put one guy at the top of the pyramid, especially if that pyramid is oriented around like jiu-jitsu technique and teaching. It's different if it's like the owner and he's like separate from the teaching and it's like his word is law because he owns the place. That is still important and you need that kind of leadership. But when you have a guy who's like interacting with the clientele and he becomes the person that everyone goes to for answers, this is where it becomes a slippery slope, because the more people that go to this one guy for answers, the bigger his ego gets. And maybe he's a super cool dude, but no matter who you are, if you have a lot of people starting to come to you for answers and you are able to give those answers, it's going to elevate your perception of yourself. And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's sort of like a recursive feedback loop where they get the attention, they deploy the answers, or they deploy some value to those people, they get more attention, so on and so forth, until everyone is looking at this guy like he's God or he's like the fucking man. And that's really the danger. And that's where the cult-like mentality comes. It comes from a single guy where it's a cult of personality, people really like this guy, and then he starts taking advantage of his power. And you've heard the saying, oh, it's just absolute power corrupts absolutely. When you have power, it is almost impossible to not leverage the power, because power is equivalent to status. It's equivalent to your self-worth. It's equivalent to your identity. And if you don't know how to wield power and you've been put into a position where you're good at jiu-jitsu and you're somehow a teacher or a head instructor at a gym and all these people worship you suddenly, it's almost unavoidable that power is going to be taken advantage of someday. Usually if it's a male instructor, and most instructors are male, they eventually start dating the students, and they get attention from one of the girls, and the girl sees that everyone else goes to this guy for answers, so he's the top dog, and psychologically men and women are just like, that's how they interact. You can't really avoid. There are women in jiu-jitsu who, when there's less females in an academy, they tend to get more male attention, so they have a lot of attention, and then there's one guy who's like the man. Like none of the other guys are providing the same amount of value to her as that one guy. So it's just easy target for the dude to kind of swoop in and take advantage of that situation, take advantage of that power imbalance. So the way that I have solved that is to not have a head honcho. All the instructors are coaches. Their job is to teach you jiu-jitsu. Their job is not to teach you about life. It's not to teach you about relationships. It's not to coddle your psyche or your issues in your personal life. This is a service-based business where we are providing a service in exchange for money. That is very critical. It's not a family. We aren't all best friends. That's stupid, and it just creates social and personal strife. Now, a lot of people don't want to hear that because their jiu-jitsu gym becomes their social circle and their dating pool. The reality is, if you take advantage of that, it will quickly become not your business, and your business will fail, and it will become some dramatic interpersonal issues galore where you're coming into your gym and everyone knows your dirty laundry and you banged that chick and you banged another chick and then she doesn't like you anymore, so then she goes and talks shit about you to everyone, and then you kick her out, and then everyone knows you banged that chick, and then you do it again, and like it just goes on and on and on until you're ruined. And it's happened at so many gyms, it's comical. But it's not talked about. But I've seen it happen at so many gyms. So when I opened my gym, I was like, I know that this is not the way to do it. So I am not the primary instructor. I actually teach the least of most of my instructors. And of my instructors, if I see that one instructor is like becoming that guy, I will have him teach less. And I'll put more people in, and I'll increase the rotation and change up the classes so that if everyone goes to one guy's class, I'll make sure that class time has a different instructor each time. So it just is impossible for one person to start to garner all this attention and this power, which has cascading problems, because eventually maybe there's a falling out. You don't want to work with that guy anymore, and then he tries to take all your students to some gym down the road that hired him, or maybe tries to start his own gym, not with you. So in general, it's just good to like balance the power. It's kind of like the American system. Like it's the balance of powers. There's different. There's the judicial, the legislative, and the executive branch, right? Like that's how your gym should be. It should be like the administrative, the instructors, and then the marketers, and like they all kind of have power. And then the guy who owns the equity is the one who gets to clearly define the goals and the mission, and then we all need to orient around that goal and mission. And of course, the goal and mission is never going to be, this is my kingdom, and all of you have to do exactly what I say, and I want to make this place coddle my ego and make me feel really good about myself. Like, it would be asinine and arrogant and stupid. So that's how you avoid the cult mentality. Focus on the service. Focus on the product. Focus on the clients. Don't focus on yourself. It's not about you. It really isn't. I know everything's about you because you're living the POV of your life, but to kind of zoom out from that, be observational of your surroundings, and decide that I'm going to make this a business that serves the needs of my clientele. That is really the mindset you need. And you are focused on value, you're focused on providing value to those people, and it is not your job to be their best friends. And you shouldn't be their best friends, because this is a professional relationship with an exchange of money for services. And if you keep that ideal, you can avoid the cult-like mentality. But ultimately, culture is top-down, so the guy who has the most power has to make this conscious decision to give up that power and to set it aside and say, I don't need this because it doesn't actually serve my purposes of having a successful gym. And that's the way to do it. It really is, it's that simple. Someone at the top has to decide that there is not going to be a concentration of power. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that.